the Sylas matchup, but I still think it's rather dangerous to give Sylas over to Zeka. Once more, Zeka is 4 wins and 0 losses on Sylas with a 48 KDA. That is the actual stat, 48 KDA. So it's really taking a huge risk by leaving that open, and I'm surprised that BLG are willing to sit on it that long.
We got a bit of a run back here, Clement. We got the Aphelios, we got the Alistar locked in again for Team WE, but that Camille making her face known yet again for BiuBiu in the top lane for BLG, and we're starting to see very similar bans in second phase, just like we did in game number 1. That Galio, that mid lane focus, Team WE need to take away pieces for Zeka, and the Gnar Renekton where the focus is for BLG.
I will be absolutely shocked if Sylas is not banned here, and then W still go for Fior. I think that is...
Could you imagine a world?
They
he makes it through.
Sylas makes it through?
They see his KDA. They see his KDA. They're like, we want to ruin that. We don't want to let him have that anymore. We want to see it on the Rift to make sure it's real. As Rell's actually going to come through yet again for BLG. BLG getting the exact same composition that they had in that first game that went so well for him. This time, though, WE change up that mid lane. They hovered it last time around. They lock it in this time. It's
come on, do it, Jax. Let's go.
Do it.
We were talking about it in game 1.
Do it. Aww.
So I do like War Drinker top
still.
laners a little bit better. They typically hold up as front lines. They're pseudo tanks in a sense.
True.
So I still like this over Fiora. The problem with Fiora is just she just dies really easily without getting those vitality procs up. And for BLG side, this is still a decent chance for Sylas, and I think W are gonna regret the day if they don't start in semifinals because of this Sylas.
This would be the greatest story I would have got the cast at this point. We get to see.
They get it. They lock it
in. They get it. They change it up at the last little bit for BLG, but they get some serious comfort. And look at the man himself getting ready and raring to go on that Sylas. This is going to be a huge potential for BLG. They get the comfort they had last game. They get the success they had last game. And now they get to sprinkle a little bit of extra Zeka on top.
And they also have the Alistar in this game. We have been talking about the Alistar versus Sylas interaction, but a lot of mid laners do profess to just picking the Sylas for the Alistar. You get Unbreakable Will, and that damage reduction, rank 1 is 50%. You know how much that translates over in like armor and magic resistance? Like it's about 3,000 gold worth of stats. And it's actually even higher than that because damage reduction doesn't stack on top of armor and MR. So it's really insane to watch this composition come out. We're going to have BLG with, this time a little bit different. Sylas is a slower champion. It's not like Zoe where you pop off early. It's a much more of a 1-3-1 champion, but it's still very strong, and it's something that BLG has not lost on.
And I still feel like it's going to be a lot of the same, style that we saw from BLG in that game number 1. Even though the Sylas isn't as good early, you still see some of that mobility, some of that movement out to helping Meteor get ahead and try to get that avenue going forward. Because you are back against this Lillia Udyr matchup, and I do feel like Meteor had a really good showing last game on the Lillia, being able to set up some of those lilting lullabies, but more so keeping the pace of the game quick and in BLG's favor.
I'll be honest, this is such a huge risk from WE. I did not expect them to do this.
Dude, it is.
They banned the Orianna instead of the Sylas. I was like, what?
Maybe they were like, they're gonna go into team fight potential, but I'm going into Summoner's Rift potential here, Clement, because we are hitting the Rift for the second time of the night. Team WE already down, already on the back foot here, where they needed to solidify themselves as a top team going into the further of the season, going into the playoffs. But BLG said, no way, Jose, hold on a minute. We still got our playoff dreams alive. So I want to see what this game means and how these teams show up in game number 2.
20 years from now, if my children ask me, Daddy, how did the 2021 WE team not start in semifinals? I'm going to tell them it's because of this game. It's because they left the Sylas open.
It's literally because of the Sylas. It haunts their dreams, Clement. It haunts their dreams.
This is super interesting. Because I've chatted with Domo quite a bit. He used to coach in the LMS, and he is a super down-to-earth coach. This is the type of coach that if the enemy on the other side is having a great game, he just says, you know what? We're not dealing with this. We're banning this away. So it's really unlike him to actually just leave something like that open. And we're going to see how well WE can play around this. As we said again, Sylas is not exactly your early game champion. Ooh, really well done by Jwei. So maybe
nice
they can rotate around him, and hopefully Beishang gets a better game.
I know it's the typical now, at least the highest win rate, but that fleet footwork on the Sylas will never change to be weird to me. But hey, it works out. You get that extra healing, you get that extra movement speed. So I want to see how that kind of works out as we're going to get another fight, at least on the bot lane. It was a potential fight because we get a lot of the same of what we saw in game number 1, where as soon as either side engages, the other side stops.
Yeah, it's pretty typical to see this sort of a matchup. In the meantime, top lane, we see Breathe playing very safe here. Of course, against the hookshot early level gank, you just want to hold your wave up. So we are going to see both junglers pathing again back towards the bottom side. No opportunities given here. And what I was most amazed about from WE last game was actually their 2v2 just went out. Jiumeng and Missing, for me, outperformed in the laning phase, and they were able to take down aiming with that first blood, Jwei, excuse me, with that first blood. So this might be where W look to play for. They have this continuously shoved, and I think Beishang, we're just going to see him sort of set the same vision around. And of course, they do have sights on the Lillia for now.
Yeah, at least they'll have a little bit of vision in that aspect of it. I do want to say that Beishang is doing a really good job getting out on the rift, getting some of this farm down for himself, and keeping the pace up for themselves, even though it's early as the Udyr. That's what I like to see, is the quickness around the map. It also does look like he's going to make it to the bottom side scuttle first of all. So at least he'll be able to get that advantage. Maybe even looking at the double scuttle if he wants to be a little aggressive.
I don't think they're going to give that over, but we are going to see BLG BiuBiu just poke his head into the jungle very early on. Zeka takes a bit of a bad trade here, but I still think they have enough to defend Herald, just given their priority.
BiuBiu baiting. Oh no, Beishang gonna walk right into the trap. He's gonna get caught out here by BiuBiu, but the damage back. You gotta be careful. This is still an Udyr. BiuBiu's all by himself.
What?
BiuBiu's gonna go down. Oh no, Jwei is or Team WE is able to get the advantage, get first blood for themselves, and after all is said and done, get the double scuttle, Clement.
What? I'm kind of surprised by that chain of events. We actually saw like Meteor having the inner track to that, and it was a decent trade by BiuBiu coming out. Like, he still had flash, it was a decent trade, and then they just sort of backed off. Of course, Missing was there, but Jiumeng, burns the flash.
Yeah, that was the flash burn for both sides. The burns coming out, but not going to be able to get either one of them. A little bit different, though, because it was Jiumeng who was taken down on the side of WE, while it was just Jwei that got his health bar obliterated for BLG. So aiming able to get a lot of damage traded back, a lot of presence in the lane especially.
This just means whoever goes to bot lane first is going to pick up a win. There's no subs across the board.
Pretty much.
Very risky play coming out from both sides. And we have to see WE with just the better vision control here. So it just does mean that BLG have to be forced to back.
We'll just get that reset off, and there's still a lot of vision control around the river right now for Team WE, and so I was actually looking for Meteor to try and move that up a little bit. He is going to get that control word in the dragon pit. So we do have a mountain dragon to start us off this time, Clement. We'll see if they want to focus on that one as heavily, and we'll see if BLG are able to secure as many wins in that aspect as they did in game number 1 with that complete control. I would think it would be a different story this time around.
Yeah, the compositions are rather different. WE is into a more of a 4-1 comp, while we see BLG with more of a 1-3-1. So I would give WE the advantages when it comes to late game team fighting, just a bit more, but BLG have extra ways to kind of pull it back into their favor. So we're going to see BLG with an earlier reset here, just the Berserker Greaves getting on the map really quickly, and they should be able to take this one down without much trouble.
Beishang kind of wants to fight this one. The Emperor's Divide stolen away by Zeka. There's the Dragon taken. The Emperor's Divide just could be used, but hey, do you get Emperor's Divided back? The flash is coming out, and that feels really bad. Say goodbye to that KDA as Zeka's going to go down to Shanks.
And he goes from 48 KDA to 24 just in one play.
Feels bad, man. Oh my god.
Yeah, that I feel like Zeka could have just popped that a little bit earlier. Like, if he wanted to do a full engage, they got a little bit nervous, and now we're seeing
they have Jwei caught. That's so much damage from the crescendum there as well. As Amy was just trying to get some damage onto Missing, but they were focusing on the Jwei.
Yeah, no damage traded back by aiming whatsoever. Another just 2 kills out of nowhere for
Oh
WE.
no. BiuBiu has found yet an Udyr in the jungle here. He needs to get out, gets the hook shot over the wall, but he takes a lot of damage in return.
I really want to see the damage charts because I'm pretty sure Beishang has already done more damage in game 2 than in game 1.
He's got to. He has to.
Just from BiuBiu.
It's just two little tussles with BiuBiu and you already do a lot better. It's got to feel good for this Team WE.
Yeah, we'll look at how this trade happened in the bottom side. Jwei just kind of died out of nowhere. Oh, so...
Barely missed the crash down there.
Yeah, that's extremely important because it means that he doesn't have the aftershock. And, yeah, Rell without aftershock kind of just melts.
Yeah, and I don't think aiming felt like that was going to happen, right? Because he still put a satchel charge on Missing at the beginning of that, and maybe just going for some of that poking back and forth, that trade back and forth, but they all in, and there was no chance.
Yeah, a bit of mis-execution from Jwei right there. Even uses the Hex Flash to get into that one. Doesn't pay off. Now we're going to see Meteor with level 6 into this lane. Once again, Jiumeng does not have his Summoner, so this could be a potential gank incoming. Here we go.
Oh, here we go. Aiming starts it off here. There's the crash down, and it's going to be Jiumeng who goes down to Meteor, getting their first kill over there for themselves, and at least trying to tie up a little bit more of this bot side lead.
Okay, I hope he doesn't get found here. Missing actually
come on, I thought he was just gonna back. Oh my god, he's gonna Hex Flash. Okay. You're like, there's a wild cow in that bush that just came out of there.
That is super risky for Missing, but I admire that. He's like, I gotta hold the wave, man. I got a job to do. He's gonna get to it.
He's able to stand there, yeah.
Yeah, just well done on that part. Meanwhile, on the top side, we are going to get... this is a super skill-based matchup. We actually have seen it end up for both sides. Sometimes if Camille gets ahead with those ganks, then she can get the extra Executioner Callings. It does look like she will be going for that Divine Sunderer sort of build going into it. And Beishang with a pretty strong backup here, but BiuBiu is here first.
Yeah, he's got one more body coming over here, so they're just going to let that red buff go, and Beishang going to be able to keep that pressure up. And something completely different from game number 1, Team WE making sure to keep Zeka on his toes in mid lane, keep him in the lane. We haven't seen a lot of that mobility, a lot of that roaming potential coming out from him to help those side lanes, to help his jungler and Meteor.
Yeah, it's going to be a much different game, and I think BLG, what we've seen from them is when it goes to the late game, they actually throw quite a bit. They're much more of an early mid-game team than a late-game team. But in this composition, I don't think they have to engage as hard. Most of BLG's failings have come from their lack of engage potential from Jwei and BiuBiu. But I think in this comp, they can actually just split push till the end of days. So it's not as big of a problem. We'll see how BLG do past the 25-minute, but I've done segments on them before, and their 25-minute to end game drop is pretty massive.
They're hoping that's not going to be true today. We'll see if they can make that happen, but right now it's just going to be a lot of calm on the Rift until we get that dragon in about 40 seconds. This could be the second dragon for BLG, but could also be the first for Team WE. And they already have a decent gold lead right now, about 2.5k, as we're going to get a pause. But 2.5k already for Team WE feels a lot better, a lot different than last game. And I think they still had a pretty good lead in the early game last time around, but this feels a lot more controlled by them.
Yeah, there also isn't that much of a, I would say, like, poke or, like, in terms of the formations, it's much harder to get such a dominating win compared to game 1 with the current drafts that both sides have. And this is a very strong dragon play for them. They have the fork into the mid lane. That's where I expect it to go down. If you take the mid lane away from Sylas, it's actually very damaging. Like, there's not much the Sylas can do. His wave clear is pretty costly in terms of mana, so he will have diminishing impacts on the map. I just expect the flat-out fork coming in from WE for them to get position, and just kind of use that Alistar as a body blocker.
So in this situation, like, do you think that it comes to fruition in the later parts where you're getting into those fights? Because I feel like if the Sylas isn't ahead, you don't have that damage potential that maybe we would typically see. And so those team fights later on when you're stealing the unbreakable wheels, yeah, you're a tanky body, but you don't have that follow up there. And that's when you're still really waiting on like aiming and things like that to get ahead, and even BiuBiu maybe a little bit. But I still feel like the Sylas should be a centerpiece, right? We set it up for Zeka as this super strong pick, this super strong potential for him. But if you don't have the follow up there for the rest of your team when you are taking those fights, that's where I worry so much.
The way we have seen Zeka play this Sylas is he typically goes for Leandri's Anguish, not the Everfrost build, and he goes for the backline in team fights. So he pretty much just steals the Alistar ult. We have seen him do that quite a few times, and he's invincible for 7 seconds. He walks into your backline and just starts chain lashing your AD carry without you being able to deal damage to him. That's kind of the game plan coming out for them. And to talk about the 1-3-1, the more I think about it, the more difficult I actually feel like it's to execute, because you are also going up against Aatrox. And the problem with Aatrox is he doesn't actually have AP scalings for you to steal. He is pure AD all the way. So Sylas's matchup against him isn't all that easy. And what I think you're going to see is BLG actually try to go for backline dive. Like, if they can get Udyr, if they can get Aphelios before 3 items, get a big team fight that way, then that's kind of their ticket to come back into the game. So they still have the 1-3-1, but I think definitely that they will try and just get a good 5v5. Try to go for this Aphelios. Remember, he doesn't have cleanse anymore, and just use that right off cooldown getting ganked. So there is an open window there for them to just take down Jiumeng and win the team fight from there.
And I guess, you know, we're going to be getting right back into it after the pause here. And the thing for me is, like, how do you get Zeka out of this lane? How do you find a way to separate him from Shanks' Udyr? Because Shanks' Udyr is just constantly pressing up, constantly pushing this wave, and constantly keeping Zeka under tower.
Yeah, I do think BLG probably need to sack some chip damage on tower to get into position to find their gank kill. And once again, from BLG, this is still a composition that has very good closeout capabilities. Zeka can sustain massively by himself. We typically do skill into the Kingslayer first, and aiming, of course, still has that reset on Tristana. So if they find that first pick, it's very easy for them to just clean up the entirety of the team fight, and that's what I expect them to do here. They will try to go for flanking maneuvers. I'm a little bit... I feel like this is a little bit questionable, but Beishang, you know, doesn't even need to drop the Herald there. Zeka just actually backs out completely.
Yeah, W just taking advantage of the pause maybe a little bit, take advantage of the pace control here, and they could, they're going to use that ritual bot lane, so that's going to be a huge advantage here. They're going to take up a bunch of plates and gold for Jiumeng.
I feel like they could just take this tower. It's only 1 plate down, so they could overstay for first brick. And they should be fine here completely. A massive win coming out from BLG.
Aiming just doesn't want a part of it. He's going to stay at arm's length right now to not get taken down by Beishang and Jiumeng. But it will be first tower going over to Team WE. But BLG, we're looking at the top lane to maybe punish that or do something up there. Unable to do that against the Aatrox.
Yeah, this is not looking like a great matchup. Usually what you want to do in the Camille matchup is you get a couple of ganks in. That's a matchup that you can still snowball to your advantage, but they don't do it this time with Breathe, and it seems very difficult for BLG to now find picks on the map. Their bot lane has been collapsed in, and they pretty much can only play 2 lanes, and both of these lanes are going to get pushed in. So with push-in lanes, you don't have the vision advantage. It's very easy for the enemy to anticipate where you're going to rotate towards, and that just means your pick potential also goes sort of out the window. So as weird as it sounds, I think Meteor has to be the hero now. The greatest thing about Lillia is you can just lane gank. Swirl Seed has close to infinitive range, and if you just tag that on someone, maybe the lane gank can work.
You're betting it all on the Swirl Seed. We'll see how that works out. I like it. Well, you betting man on that one.
Bowling with Meteor.
I would like to see you get. Yeah, I mean, hey, it's a very interesting combination. At least I would like to see that kind of come through. But I think it's really hard right now as a Lillia. You don't have as much as like that damage potential this early on, right? You're still waiting on some completions for yourself. You have a lot of pieces right now, but you're still farming up as we're going to see him back right now and more than likely finish some of that. It still means that WE are on the map and WE are looking for things. And that gives you that moment, that window, I guess, for Team WE to really capitalize.
Yeah, I think this is going to be BLG's chance. They see the 3-man stack already, and W don't even go for it.
Nope.
I think there's a difference between W and a lot of our other LPL teams. They are very cautious when they go for plays. They are not a 50-50 team. Like TT, I feel like Xiaopeng basically admitted it himself. It's like, when we see a fight, we go for a fight. If we fail the fight, then we go for the fight again. The most important thing is to be happy. That's a lot of LPL teams out there. I don't think W
Words
is one
to
of them.
live by. We do see that turret plate advantage, though, secured by Team WE with 0 going over to BLG. No early lane presence from them at all this time around.
Yeah, 4,000 gold down, and I've got to admit that this Sylas being unbanned actually sort of makes sense now. W are reading, and you won because you got an early snowball pick. What if we just don't even let you play the laning phase? What if you go on Sylas that just gets pushing all the time? Sylas isn't the problem, it's the game pacing. So it's a decent idea here, but you know, Zeka could always claw it back into the in the late games. We have seen him do that multiple times on the Sylas. That's why he's good on it.
Yeah.
We've been in this position before, and he's still been able to come back. But mainly, I think it has to come down to BiuBiu and Lillia just finding the picks, you know?
Find something, at least, for some of these members. And we're starting to see those mythic items come across the board for either side, and that's a little bit more damage potential. You're still waiting a little while for the ADCs really to come online. But those team fights are starting to get a little spicier, starting to get a little more back and forth. And yes, there is a big gold lead for Team WE this early in the game, 15.5 minutes in. But as you said, there's always the possibilities of some of these scaling instruments to come online for BLG at least. And we have another dragon in 45 seconds, Clement. It's going to be another Infernal Soul on the Rift. Man, we got so lucky in this series so far. But big priority from both teams, I have no doubt.
Yeah, never really the soul that you want to see if you're the team trying to hold out here. Infernal is always the hard one to... It has the greatest impact on win rate out of all of the souls in the game. It's like plus 20% or something like that. It's absolutely massive if you get that one. I do want to mention that we are going to get the Everfrost from Zeka, so this is a bit more catch potential than you're used to, but a lot less damage coming into the late game. I wonder if he's trying to index into some sort of 2-man game with BiuBiu and in the side lane. They both have teleports, so they could potentially just go for picks and then still show up in the team fights on time.
Getting a little worried though, because you know Shanks is so good, and Shanks is on this Azir, and he's getting ahead. He's getting a lot of focus in the mid lane for him as well, even though he's in the top lane now against it. And so I think that, like, you have to be careful this Azir scaling. We talked about scaling on both sides, but this Azir, this potential in the team fights for the Shurima Shuffle, Emperor's Divide, all that wonderfulness that can come out from the Azir, it's going to be key to how Team WE want to fight these fights, right? That's going to be key to how they take those mid-moment changes in the fights and try to capitalize on BLG's mispositioning. While, you know, talking about mispositioning, Team WE are about to take a free dragon. It's going to be second dragon for them.
Yeah, no contest from BLG. They're 5,000 gold behind, and they haven't had really any action going on for quite a long while. So I feel like the game at this point is starting to slip away. The later you get into the game, the more items the backline gets. You get things like GA and Mikhails, all of that good stuff coming out. It becomes a lot more difficult to actually target out the Aphelios. And we have seen Aphelios just go for things like Bloodthirster, go for things like the Mercurial Scimitar, and it just becomes impossible to kill them late game. So I think BLG do have a little bit of a window on their backline dive strategy. This is pretty much 3 guys going in. Lillia also has great backline potential onto someone like Jiumeng, but if they don't pull it off quickly enough, there are great chances for WE.
We're talking about quickly, the headbutt pulverize not going to land there, but missing. But BiuBiu's caught here. They wanted the initial grouping, but they aren't going to get it. They're just going to get BiuBiu. The Littling Lullaby comes out just to try and save his life. but it's not going to be. And the execution from Team WE is too good right now. They're at 6K in the lead. They've got the pace control of the game, and they are all the way in the driver's seat.
This is super interesting to see from Missy. He's actually not indexing into the locket. I thought he would think about more for Jiumeng.
True.
But he's like, nah, you know, Jiumeng actually isn't that important. We've got Shanks, we got Breathe. It's okay. I'm just going to go for Shirelia's battle song, and we're just going to chase them around the map.
I love it. I absolutely love it. We're talking about that chase down potential, right? Hey, now they've got it. I will want to point out that left side of your screen, there is not a single person on the side of BLG that has any sort of gold lead over their opponent. So I would like to see some of that get shored up. Maybe some of this farm differential kind of ease up a little bit for BLG. But Team WE are fine just trucking along right now.
Yeah, we are getting to that late game 5v5 territory where BLG are not exactly known to be as proficient. They don't have a 1-3-1 lead, as we've been seeing, and right now I don't think Zeka can actually contest Breathe. Breathe is actually too far ahead, but we might get a misplay for Missing.
Yeah, Missing gets caught out a little bit, but it could have just been a bait. You get the TP from BiuBiu. Rocket jump over the wall, gets caught by Breathe, and it doesn't matter. The gold lead is too much. You get a couple kills on the Aphelios, you get the chase down in the side lane by aiming going down to Breathe, and that means Team WE are just going to shove it down mid lane. They get the second tier tower, and now you got pings coming onto Baron right now, Clement.
Yeah, really easy call coming in from WE. Double kills, especially on Amy. He also burns all his summoners trying to get away from that one. That was just a great flanking play. Lots of leads coming out, and there's really no way that Meteor can get into this one. He's not even going to try at this point, just clearing out the mid wave instead.
It is just going to be a free objective yet again given over to Team WE. All 5 of them going to be dressed in purple. Getting a nice little reset for 4 of them at least, while Breathe is going to stay top lane. And that means that this gold lead is getting unmanageable right now, Clement. We've slowly seen it develop. It was 4K, now then it was 6K, now it's almost 10K. So BLG definitely have a very tough mountain to climb. I just hope they brought some climbing equipment as we look into that fight.
Aiming, sort of going a little bit over aggressive, being baited out, and that's a great double TP coming in from the backside. We see Breathe just going over the wall, not even having to use his flash on that one, just takes the dashes over and able to chop down on aiming quite easily. So at this point, WE probably just looking at the Dragon Soul. That's the latest they're going to finish off the game. They could probably even do so beforehand. Really, any way they can play it, they'll go for it. And BLG, I'm a little bit disappointed. They just never got a chance to find any picks, and in fact, it's BiuBiu getting picked once.
Yeah, he doesn't get picked off with a ton of damage. Jiumeng is going to get the kill with the Moonlight Vigil, and they follow it up here. I was hoping Shanks is going to get the big ol' Udyr ulti, but not able to find it on that one, as BLG were able to run away in time. But look at this mid lane push. Look at the damage potential that WE are rocking right now, and they're looking for the inhib.
New item power spike going across. Renan hurts Hurricane for the Aphelios. The wave clear is there. The DPS is there.
They just want to go for it. They get the aiming is gone. I don't know where he went. Poof. And then you got the rest of the team going, joining him right there in the death realm. Got a couple more kills going over. This is just going to be the game, and that means that WE did have the right stuff. They knew exactly what they wanted to go for, and they're going to take that second tier Nexus tower. They move on to the fight. They move on to the re-engagement. There's the Hextech Ultimatum. Going to get a couple kills. At least they get one back, and Zeka tried not to hurt that KDA even more so, but that Nexus is going down, and that means that we're going to a game number 3.
Does this mean that we can't reuse the Sylas storyline anymore? It's still 24 KDA. It's not that bad, but
it's still good. At least he didn't die a second time. Like that's good.
Unfortunately for BLG this game, they don't actually get any of the side lane action going. I felt like the way you play that top lane with Camille and Lillia is you have to find ganks into it, or you just kind of get overrun in the later phase of the game by that Aatrox. So, I have to give it to Domo, give it to WE. That was the right call. The problem wasn't Sylas. The problem was early game tempo. And they definitely understood that we're not playing this game trying to go into later phases. We don't really care about BLG's 1-3-1 or their backline dive potential. As long as they don't get going early, we are absolutely fine. And I think W will likely maintain this draft. We had very, very similar drafts in Game 1 and Game 2, likely in Game 3 as well.
You would have to think so, but I think the biggest keys for me was that just absolute monster presence that Shanks was able to have in the mid lane, and as well as Beishang was huge on keeping the tempo up, keeping it in the face of Meteor, while the whole time, his lanes were doing just fine. And so when you don't have advantages that are developing really anywhere for BLG, that's where that composition just becomes so hard to execute. That's where you see the KDA for the Kingslayer coming down a little bit.
Yeah, I think both side lanes for BLG actually gone awry really early on. Jwei with the no aftershock engage just dies instantly.
That's so unfortunate.
And then BiuBiu also with a very unfortunate roam to help out with the scuttle also dies. So BLG, I think this draft was actually okay, but their laning phase mishaps were a little too much. And if you lose just like flat out kills given over WE in the early game, you can't really expect to come back into this one. And we see Jiumeng once again leading the pack with the damage score, just closing it out.
And that's just so troublesome on the other side, right? You had such a good performance on Tristana from Amy in game number 1. Now Jiumeng coming up big on the Aphelios. So where do we see more of those bans go? We had still so many middle lane bans. Sylas making it through, but BLG need to rethink that one a little bit, or at least rethink their early game strategy when it comes to that. Because yes, the Tristana is good, but when you can't get advantages anywhere, like I was just saying earlier, like that makes these pieces impossible to pull off because they need so much gold. They need so much of that extra influx.
What I think is going to happen is you're going to see BLG double down even further onto the early game. They are going to go full on red side, and Kaisa is going to be the pick for aiming. He's going back.
All right, I love it. We're going to see if the prophet Clement can come true here in game number 3. But we're going to step away, take a little break. On the other side of this, we have the final game between